Namaskaram. Yo nityamachyutapadam bujayugmarukmabhyamo hatastaditarani trunayamene asmadgurur bhagavatosya dayekasindhoho ramanujasya charanau sharanam prapadye mata pitta yuvatayasthanaya vibhutis sarvam yadeva niyamena madanvayanam आद्यस्य नः कुलपतेर्वकुलाभिरामं श्रीमत्तदहं प्रणमामि मूर्ध्ना यत्पदाम्भोरुहध्यानविध्वस्ता शेषकल्मषः वस्तुताम् उपयातोऽहं यामुनेयं नमामितम् अस्मद्गुरुपरम्परायै नमः। नमस्सभायै. Please refer to the soft copy of the book that was shared. We are on page 244. We will resume from the first verse of the 7th chapter. So 6 chapters have been completed, or rather 1/3. The first hexad has been completed, which Bhagavan Krishna had given the Upadesha about Karma Yoga and Jnana Yoga to Arjuna. He ended the 6th chapter with the shloka saying that Tapasvibhyo Yoginam api sarvesham madhyatena antaratmana. So Krishna was telling Arjuna about the highest yogi or the superior yogi, but that yogi, the nature about him, his nature rather, has not been explained. That is going to be the subject matter of the second hexad, in which Bhakti Yoga is going to be taught, and the Bhakti Yogi would be introduced. So the 7th, we went through the introduction to the 7th chapter by Bhagavad Ramanuja, how the terms which are found in the Upanishads, Upasana, Bhakti, Dhyana, all these are synonymous. One of the challenges faced by the commentators is that the tone of the Upanishads is mostly impersonal, let us say emotionless. Not everywhere, but most of the places. So it talks about that dry jnana, which is attaining Atma Jnana, which is knowing Brahman, doing Upasana, meditation, etc. etc. But when we switch over to the other side, namely the Bhagavad Gita, the Puranas, everywhere Bhakti is glorified. Bhakti towards Paramatma. Now, is there a way to, let us say, take the Bhakti route through the Upanishads, or do we declare that the Upanishads give a different way, namely Jnana, and as some people consider, for that Jnana to arise, Bhakti is needed to cleanse the internal mechanism. Therefore, Bhakti can be said to be inferior to Jnana. No, says Bhashyakara. He says Bhakti, Jnana are all same. Upasana, Dhyana are all same. According to him, he is able to justify. So that's why the introduction, he said all these words are synonymous. All these are basically Bhakti. In order to know more about Bhakti, then we need to know about the transcendental nature of Brahman. Who is Brahman? So the middle hexad is very important. The 6 chapters forming a part of the middle hexad is very important, because it's going to tell more about the nature of Brahman. Who is he? If we go through the Yoga Sutras also talk about Ishvara. So Sarvesham api Guruhu. Patanjali Maharishi, he talks about Ishvara Pranidhana. He devotes about 7 to 8 sutras to explain the glory of Ishvara, but he stops with that. He does not explain more about the nature of the Paramatma. He is a Guru, he is a Atma, he is Sarvajna, but that's it. What is the relation between such an Ishvara and the world, which consists of animate and inanimate matter that he has created? In Vishishtadvaita, the clarity is brought out as to what is the sambandha, what is the relation vis-a-vis between Ishvara, Paramatma, Bhagavan. All these words are again synonymous. Brahman, like in Advaita, here a distinction is not made. A distinction is not made between Ishvara, Brahman, etc. Here Brahman is Ishvara and Krishna is that Brahman. So Krishna begins the 7th chapter with the shloka Shri Bhagavan Uvacha Maya Saktamana Partha Yogam Yunjanmadashrayah Asamshayam Samagram Mam Yatha Jnasyasi Tachrunu Tat Shrunu Tachrunu. Listen to that. Hear that. Yatha Jnasyasi Tachrunu. How you can know Asamshayam Samagram. How you can know fully without any doubt. Listen to me, that I'm going to tell you about. What is that? My asakta manaha. Asakta manaha means being devoted to, being attracted to, or in yoga's terminology, being focused. So my asakta manaha. With your mind focused on me. Yunjan madashrayah. Yunjan is the verb for yoga. The term yoga, it comes from yuja samadhu. So yunjan is a verb. If Sanskrit, it will be easy to appreciate that. Otherwise, it's fine. Knowing Sanskritam is nice to have. We have the English commentary and we have a person explaining also. So yunjan madashrayah, matu ashrayah madashrayah, having me for your support, taking me as your support and practicing yoga. Listen to me, and without any doubts, you will get to know fully about what we are going to discuss now. Next verse, there is not very special about the first shloka commentary. So we'll go to the second one. Jnanam te aham savijnanam idam vakshyamya sheshatah yajñātva neha bhūyonyat jnātavyam avasishyate. There are two terminologies being used in the second verse, jnanam, vijnanam. What is the difference between jnanam and vijnana? That Ramanuja is going to explain in his commentary. So we'll go through the commentary. Jnanam te aham. Aham, Krishna says, I, te, to you. Jnanam, savijnanam, idam, vakshyami, asheshataha. Without anything left out, I'm going to teach you completely about jnana and vijnana. This, the subject matter about what we are going to discuss or what we are currently discussing. Yat jnatva na iha bhuyah anyat jnatavyam avashishyate. After knowing which, what I'm going to teach you, after knowing that, there will be nothing left that you will have a need to know. Which means I would have taught you completely. If you listen to me carefully, I would have taught you completely the jnana and vijnana about whatever yoga is being left out now, bhakti yoga. Please go through the commentary of Bhagavad Ramanuja on page 244 to the second verse. Aham te mad vishayam idam jnanam. We already discussed about the nature of jnana. Whenever we say jnana should be about something. There should be an object for jnana. I cannot say that I know and then stop with that I know. Then people will obviously ask, what do you know? Then I cannot say, no, I know. Don't ask me what I know. Then I would sound very funny. So we have to tell people that I know about Paramatma, I know about Jivatma. Because the term knowledge, jnanam, it is one of the arguments of Vishishtadvaita against schools like Advaita, that if you say jnanam, there should be an object. If you say awareness, then the self, at least the self must be the object of awareness. If the self is the object of awareness, then there comes duality. One is awareness, one is the self. So that is why many arguments are put forth against such an Advaita. Such an Advaita in the sense, an extreme viewpoint of saying nothing else is there apart from Satyam, Jnanam, Anantam, etc. Why I am saying this is that Vishishta Advaita. Vishishta Advaita is also Advaita only. Vishishta Advaita. Such a Brahman is one, Advitiya. But it has the Jivatmas and the Prakriti as its modes, as its attributes. So Vishishta means qualified or together with something. Visheshanam is something which qualifies. So such a Brahman is always a qualified Brahman. Qualified by what? Qualified by its modes, prakara, which are the inanimate and animate tattvas. So therefore, Jnanam, Ramanuja says, Mad Vishayam Idam Jnanam. I'm going to share the knowledge, I'm going to share the wisdom. If I keep saying this, then somebody will stop and ask me, what is it about? So Ramanuja says, Mad Vishayam, about me, because I am the Paramatma, I am the Parabrahman. So I'm going to tell you about that jnana, whatever is required about me. Vijnanena saha asheshatah vakshami. Along with Vijnana, completely I will tell you. Then Vijnanam hi vivikta akara vishayam jnanam. So what is Vijnana? What does V stand for in the term Vijnanam? In Sanskritam, we have what are known as upasargas. Upasargas are could be a single letter, a two letter, or three letter prefixes which qualify that word to which they are attached. So V plus Jnanam, Vijnanam. Most of the times they give a different meaning when added to a particular word. So Vijnanam here, the V, Vivikta Akara Vishayam. Vivikta Akara Vishayam means it's about the nature, how different he is from other things. What are the other things? What is the difference between these three and how different Bhagavan is? Yatha aham mat vyatiriktat samasta chitachit vastu jatat nikhilaheya pratyanikataya. So this is the essence of Vishishadvaita. In this chapter, Krishna is going to say how he is everything. If Krishna is going to say he is everything, then how can he differentiate himself from the other objects? See, the challenge faced by the schools is that they take up some arguments of the Upanishads and then justify that arguments is the essence of Upanishads. For example, this unity, Ekatvam, the Advaitam, Advitiyam, etc. So that becomes a stress point for Advaita school of philosophy. So they try to maintain that if at all there is only one thing, one phenomenon, one tattva, then that is Brahman. So rest are all maybe illusory. Not maybe, rest are all illusory. They don't exist in reality. If you take Dvaita, then they stress upon the duality aspect of the Upanishad statements. They say everything is different. You cannot howsoever bring upon the concept of unity between the various diverse objects of the universe. A Jivatma is Jivatma only. He can never become similar to Brahman. Like this, they explain Dvaita. But when it's come to Vishishtadvaita, the challenge is even more. Because why we say the Brahman is both similar to and different from Jivatma. The Brahman is present everywhere in the universe along with the Jivatmas and Achit Tattva. Yet he is different. He is not touched by the Swabhava, the nature of the Jivatmas and the Acheta Tattva in which he exists. Therefore, it becomes even difficult to conceive of such a Brahman. So here Ramanuja says, Yatha aham mad vyatiriktat aham, like how me, myself, from those which are different to me, samasta chitta chit vastu jatat. What are there? These are the entire the group of chit and achit tattvas, whatever. From them, Nikhilaheya Pratyanikataya. Nikhilaheya. all the heya means, let us say, faults or doshas. Pratyanika means pratibhata. Pratyanika means opposed to, an enemy. But the meaning is that there is an absence of doshas and Bhagavan. That is the meaning here. But that's the terminology being used by uh, the literature or the pramana. So Nikilaheya Pratyanikataya, by being free from all evils or free from all doshas, Anavadika Atishaya Asankeya Kalyana Gunagana Ananta Maha Vibhutitaya. So it is not only the absence of doshas in me, but I also have a lot of positive attributes, the gunas, which are limitless by all means. Anavadhika, Atishaya, exceeding, unsurpassing, Asankeya, countless, Kalyana Gunagana, Ananta Maha Vibhutitaya. And my Vibhuti is also Ananta. Like I happened to watch a small video someone shared in the group about a discussion between followers of two schools of thought, two religions, between a Muslim man and an ISKCON devotee. They're arguing on the street. They're discussing on the street. Then the discussion goes about God. The Muslim man is asking the ISKCON devotee, how can I limit God into the forms that he has created? When you say he is so big, he is immeasurable, how can I say that he is limited by the objects that he has created? Because he is all pervaded. So here in Vishishadvaita, that argument does not hold good. Why? Because Brahman is not limited by the objects he has created. He is much more than what he has created. He is beyond his creation. Tripad, Upanishad or the Vedas, they give a measure saying that 1/3 is only Srishti, 2/3 is, it is not related to the matter. So which means so huge, and it says that 2/3 also only the starting line is not the ending line. So like this it describes. So which means that Ananta Maha Vibhutitaya. So the Vibhuti is something, and the Brahman exceeds the Vibhuti also. So infinity, when we say infinity in mathematics, it's quite difficult to conceive, to put a number. Therefore, so God is not limited by the objects of his creation, because he is not just pervaded the entire objects and that's it. No, he is much more than his creation. So just sort of sharing that. So we are not limiting Brahman by saying that he is present in all the objects. च विविक्तः तेन विविक्तविषयज्ञानेन सह मत्स्वरूपविषयज्ञानं वक्ष्यामि. So I will tell you the difference. Also, I will tell you my own Swarupa. I'll give you the jnana about my own Swarupa. Kim Bahuna? Kim Bahuna is like what more? Yad jnanam jnatva mayi punaha anyat jnatavyam na avashishyate. There will be nothing left after you know what I am going to say. So whatever I am going to say, after listening to that, after knowing that, you will have nothing else to know about me. This is the second verse. Bhakshamanasya jnanasya dushprapatamaha. But Krishna says, even before he gives the Upadesha, he says, like a good teacher, he may have this feeling after teaching for 10-15 years, nobody has really come up well in my life. Whoever has learned from me. Why? Because it's very difficult to find even one single good student. That could be a feeling of some teachers. So Krishna says, though I am born, I take avatars, I make acharyas be born, and this Upadesha is being given from time immemorial, still this jnanam is very difficult to attain. Manushyanam sahasreshu kaschit yatati siddhaye yatata amapi siddhanam kaschit mavveti tatpataha. Manushyanam sahasreshu. Let us go to the Bhashya of Ramanuja. Here Manushyaha means not all the human beings. Ramanuja says Manushyaha Shastradhikara Yogyaha. If we have some time, we're all very busy running after something. what we should, I usually say this in the lectures, what we should do is to understand the world better. Hire a car. If you have a car, it's fine. Hire a driver. Be driven. Don't do anything. Just observe. Sit on the back seat. No talking, no discussion. Go for a long ride. Go through a big city or something. Just observe people. Just observe people. We come across so many people, their nature, what do they do, what do they speak, why such a difference exists between people. We keep on analyzing this, then we come to study philosophy. We can see how the rishis have observed the manifested world, how they applied their thoughts and minds on the diversity of the world, and they have arrived at a reason. What is the reason? Because of the gunas that operate. The sattva, rajas, and the tamo gunas that operate in human beings, and all beings, in fact, and in the achetana also, how they influence their proportion, how they the proportion, the combination between the three gunas, how it affects the people and their behavior and whatever. So when we look at the world in a passive manner without being identified, getting identified with the what we see, then we also kind of we look at suffering. When we look at suffering per se, I mean this is a big topic. Let me not go into that, get distracted. But the essence is that wherever suffering is there, we can see the inability to overcome the suffering. The inability could be with respect to jnana, with respect to money, or with respect to the ability in general, whatever. So that inability is what makes people to continue with their suffering, to overcome the situation. Even samsara is again a situation we continue to suffer. Why? Because we don't have the means to overcome it. So what is the means to overcome it? The right jnana. What is the right jnana about the tattvas, the tattva jnana, and how to meditate, how to take it further. So attaining jnana is one thing, then translating the jnana into action or a fixity in the buddhi is a different thing. That abhyasa only we are following here. And this, even this thinking, as to looking at the world, has to trying to question the question itself: what is suffering? Not why I'm suffering. What is the suffering? So going into all these things also, it requires such a state of mind. It is not open to everybody. So as per Shastra, what it says, though there are some people who are bound by the Shastras, there are many who are not bound by the Shastras at all. Even today, we find so many people leading lives which we can't even imagine. So, is it possible to lead such a life? They eat whatever they want, they drink whatever they wish, they do activities that we would even won't be able to tolerate what they are doing. Those are all beyond the scope of the Shastra. So, what Ramanuja here says, Manushyaha means, what Bhagavan says, he has in his mind, Shastra Adhikara Yogyaha. Whoever is bound by the Shastras, whoever has Sattva Guna to know, first of all, what is Shastra, to understand what it says and to follow it. Tesham sahasreshu kaschideva siddhi paryantam yatate. Even 1 in 1,000 among them, he tries to attain the state of perfection. State of perfection in the sense, whatever the rules of yoga, for example, here it says to follow that and then try to reach until the end. To bring it to a logical conclusion, let us say, Siddhi paryantam yatamananam sahasreshu kaschiti eva mam viditva mattas siddhaye yatate. There are some who become contented with experiencing their own Atma Swarupa. They don't want to go beyond. Like some of us, we stop our education till a certain point and say, I'm okay with this. I don't want to study further because I feel contented. But there are some of us who says, I'm still studying. Somebody brought a visiting card. When they turned the visiting card back, it contained a lot of degrees. deal it. So many degrees are there. Why? Because this thirst is not quenched. So likewise, only a few people who have experienced their own self, they would like to go beyond that. What is beyond? Bhagavan. The Paramatma Anubhava is still there. So then Krishna says, Kaschit means someone only will get to know about me, and he will try to attain me. Madvidam sahasreshu tatpato yathavasitam mam veti na kaschiti iti abhiprayah. Then what Krishna says is that actually na kaschiti iti abhiprayah. Yathavasitam mam veti. One who wants to know the real me. Such a fellow is very rare, says Krishna. Sa Mahatma Sudurlabaha Mam tu Vedana Kaschana Iti Sakshati. To put it in a very lighter way, Mam tu Vedana Kaschana. This is Bhagavan's Vedana also. In Tamil, as they say, Yerna Ortho Derjikliye, he says. That's our Pulambal also. Day-to-day life, nobody is understanding me. Nobody is trying to understand me. I'm doing only good to everybody, but nobody is understanding me. So don't worry, Bhagavan is with us. Mam to Vedana Kastana is his. That is his Vedana also, that nobody knows about him completely. Then he says, okay, Arjuna, at least you have approached me. Some vadhyas, some teachers, they hardly find students in the classes. People don't want to, they abstain from attending some classes. So Krishna says now, luckily you are there. I'm not allowing you to go now. With you as the student, classes are recorded now. Vyasa is recording the classes. So let it reach people. So please listen. Bhumira aponalo vayuhu khammano buddhirevacha ahankara iti yamme bhinna prakriti rashtadha. Krishna is going to say in the 4th and 5th shlokas about the two prakriti that he is associated with. Here, very beautifully, he uses the word me. Me means mama. Mama prakriti, he says. Very interesting words. This chapter is very interesting actually because we are going to see the meaning for the word Maya also here. So Bhagavan very clearly says, my, he owns. If everything were mere illusion, nobody would own illusions. But Bhagavan says, Mama Prakriti. Bhumihi, Apaha, Analaha, Vayuhu, Kham, Manaha, Buddhihi, Ahankara. The first 5 are purely, let us say, material, the Pancha Bhuta. And the rest 3 we can say quasi material. They are the Manas, Buddhi, and Ahankara. Why? Because they are associated with the Jivatma more. Let us say for the software aspects. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, they form the hardware aspects of existence. But this Manas, Buddhi, and ego, they form the software aspects. But these 8 elements, they are my Prakriti, but lower Prakriti. Ashtada Bhinna Madhya iti Vidhi. So Ramanuja just explains 8-fold is my lower Prakriti. How do we know lower? Next verse is going to say Apareyam itaspanyam Prakritim Vidhi me param Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yayedam Dharyate Jagate. Apara Yam Itaha tu Anyam Prakriti. Apara means higher. I mean, this is whatever you said lower. Because para, it all depends on the context only. Like in the first chapter, we said Paryaptam, Aparyaptam. Duryodhana uses the word Paryaptam, Aparyaptam. Like those words are very context related. Paryaptam means enough, Aparyaptam means not enough. Other way, Paryaptam means this is sufficient, Aparyaptam means not sufficient. Or more, like it depends on the context actually. Here, the same way, Apara Iyam, whatever I have said, the previous 8 are lower nature. Gitaha to Anyam Prakriti Vidhi. There is one more Prakriti which is higher to this, know that Jiva Bhutam Mahabaho Yaya Idam Dharite Jagat. So the Jiva, life principle, Jiva Bhuta is the other nature by which the universe is sustained. We have to conceive the Vishishtadvaita conception of universe like this. Though Bhagavan is present everywhere, he ultimately he is the Dharta, he is the holder, he is the sustainer of all beings. Still, what it does is, if there is a Tattva with a name and form, there would be a Jivatma holding on to it. So Jiva Tattva would be there. Through the Jiva, Bhagavan holds things generally. For example, we say, that's why we say Bhumi Devi, Vayu Bhagavan. So we associate a Jiva with each and every Acheta Tattva also, whatever is part of creation, not what we create. Suppose we create a laptop, let us say, that's also an Acheta Tattva. So we cannot associate a Jivatma to the laptop. But this is creation is according to Bhagavan's Srishti. See, what we do is only mix and match. Human beings, we are not creating anything as such. We are only mixing and matching what is there already created. So this is not actual creation. So whatever creation happens naturally, that creation is through the presence of Jivatmas. Therefore, Bhagavan says here, Yaya idam dharyate jagat. So each and every aspect of this Prakriti is held by Jivatma Tattva. Okay. So the commentary Ramanuja says the Apara Prakriti is lower, which becomes Bhogya basically, object of experience. The Para Prakriti is a Bhokta. Bhokta means who is the experiencer. Then again, very interesting shloka, sixth one. Etadyonini bhutani sarvani tyupadharaya aham kritsnasya jagataha prabhavah prayastatha. I, he says, aham etadyonini bhutani sarvani iti upadharaya. Sarvani means everything else that you see as a combination of these two are all born from the combination of these two Prakriti, the lower and higher. By saying that 8, it does not mean that only these 8 are the lower Prakriti. It also depends on the those which are created from these 8 basically. Then of course Jivatma is homogeneous, so therefore only one term is used, Jiva Bhutam. So the rest is all a combination or born out of these two Prakriti Tattva. Now, where do these Prakriti Tattva originate from? Aham Krishnasya Jagataha Prabhavaha Prayastatha, says Krishna. That I am the origin and dissolution of the whole universe. So these two are mine, they originate from him. And the rest of the creation, everything is just a combination of these two Prakritis. Now let us go to the commentary. I'll try to be slow, but let me try to give my best. Etat chetana chetana samashti rupa madiya prakriti dvaya yonini. Chetana samashti rupam idam. There are two terms associated with Srishti. Samashti Srishti, Vyakti Srishti. Samashti means the whole, the holistic. There is a Chaturmukha Brahma, then what does he do? We may have this doubt. If he is said to be the creator, then what is his role? Then Bhagavan what he does is, he gives all those building blocks ready to Chaturmukha Brahma. Chaturmukha Brahma what he does? He then creates something with whatever has been given to him. So that Srishti which Chaturmukha Brahma does is Vyashti, individual creation. But Bhagavan, what he did was, he gave those building blocks which are common for all the Srishti, but Brahma, he mixes and matches and then creates objects that are peculiar or pertaining to those creations only. So therefore, here, this is a higher level of creation, which is called as Samashti. Samashti Rupa Madhya Prakriti Dvaya yonini. Brahmadi stambha paryantani. So it includes everything now. These two, right from Brahma, even Chaturmuka Brahma is also part of this creation only. Stambha means it could be a blade of grass or anything that is very insignificant. Ucha vacha bhavena, higher and lower, whatever the differences are there. Avastitani, chidachin mishrani, sarvani bhutani, madiyani, upadharaya. So all these, the objects that you see in this world, the creations basically, they all have a chit element and achit element. So all these things are owned by me or they belong to me because I am the creator of their own raw materials. Madiya prakriti dvaya yonini hi tani madiyani eva. Therefore, these variegated objects that you see, they are formed with the combination of chit and achit, which are in fact they are from me. Tatha prakriti dvaya yonitvena kritsnasya jagataha tayoho dvayoho abhi mad yonitvena madiyatvena cha kritsnasya jagataha ahameva prabhavaha ahameva pralayaha ahameva cha sheshi iti upadharya. Therefore, it amounts to saying that I am the actual creator. I am the actual creator. See, like, let us take the example of kitchen. Today it becomes difficult to talk anything openly about anything because anything and everything is being taken out of context and ideas are being associated. Kitchen is the easiest example, right? Because we make so many food items from what we have in the kitchen, obviously. Rice and other pulses, grams, etc. We grind them in the right proportion, mix and mash, do paratha, chapati, rice, whatever, dal, etc. And then we are so proud of our own creation. Add salt, add sugar, whatever required. And ultimately, the good work goes unappreciated. There is no single word of appreciation from the people who eat. They might have asked, they might have opened their mouth to say, give me one more or two more. Not, they may not say, very good. Okay, that's not the point here. But what have we actually made? The rice was given to us. The sense we bought from a shop, ready-made. Pulses, grams, sugar, salt, for that matter, whatever the ingredients that we used, they were all already siddha, produced. So what did we do? Merely mix them in some combinations. Of course, that buddhi, we may say, no, I used my buddhi to do that, right? But that buddhi is not always with us. When we are overcome with anger, with passion, with so many things, that buddhi fails. Or 1:30 at midnight, somebody wakes up and says, go to the kitchen, make something for me. You know what will happen. So that buddhi is also not under our control. Very beautifully, Krishna is going to say, Matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. From me, no Arjuna, from me, memory and the forgetfulness.
Wow. Ruined a potential inside joke.
Please mute yourself. Hello.
Inside joke.
Hello.
Do you know what an inside joke is?
Solve that word.
Hello. Can you please mute yourself?
Oh, you get clue for dodge. She told the word itself, then I forgot. I thought you said you finished it.
Okay. Technology problems. Okay. So what is actually, I lost the connection now. So what is actually cooking now? Cooking is just mixing and matching the things that are given to us. So who has done the, it talked about buddhi, matta smriti jnanam apohanam cha. So Bhagavan says, Memory or forgetfulness is from me only. Interestingly, Nammalvar, he says in his Tiruvai, he echoes this thought, Marappum Jnanamum Nan Ondrum Unardilan. If I remember you, that's because of you. If I forget you, that's because of you. So why I'm saying these things is that even that buddhi, so-called buddhi, which we claim that it belongs to us, is also given by Bhagavan, is not under control. Therefore, whatever creation we make is actually done by Bhagavan. But what if there is some dosha in that? Then he is not associated with the dosha, because the dosha becomes part of the that creator. That is the Jivatma, the fault hidden. Okay. Now the point here is again, so Bhagavan says, actually, if you see Arjuna, Ahameva Prabhavaha. So I am the creator. I am the origin for all these things. Ahameva Pralayaha. They all come to me when there is a dissolution or pralaya. Ahameva cha seshi iti upadharaya. And therefore I am the boss. I am the. So it is like one more example is the Navaratri, you can say. In Navaratri, what we do is that we clean the boxes every year. Once in a year, we clean the boxes, bring all the dolls, arrange them. 10 days over, then Visarjan. We don't do Visarjan, but what we do is roll all the dolls and then keep again the same boxes. So this is like Srishti. When Srishti is about to happen, Bhagavan will bring all the raw materials, everything from the box that he has. Then after the Srishti is over, everything has to be packed and kept properly, because we have to use for the next Navaratri, right? So likewise, so Bhagavan is the Srishti, he is the Prabhava, and he is the Pralaya for all the so-called created objects of this world. Tayoho chidachit samashti bhutayoho prakriti purushayoho api parama purusha yonitvam shruti smriti siddham. Ramanuja adds that Krishna perhaps has this in mind. Arjuna, I am not saying this out of my own thinking. Even Shruti Smriti all say these things. Mahan abhyakte liyate, abhyaktam akshare liyate, aksharam tamasi liyate, tamah pare deve eki bhavati, says Subhala Upanishad. These are the other aspects of creation. Mahat, avyakta, akshara, and tamaha. These are the 4 stages. Like very beautifully, Upanishad itself gives examples to understand this. When we, if we have a garden in our home, when we try to grow some vegetables or whatever, the first step is to wet the soil. So we pour some water, make it ready, and then sow the seed, and then we cover it with soil, right? If we keep watching, nothing happens for some days. It depends on the seed also. So after a couple of days, as we keep watering it, you would see that soil is getting uh, it breaks basically. Something from inside it pushes the soil, creates space basically. Then the next step would be to see that there is a small sprout which comes up. Even before we find making up space by what is inside, that inside one, the seed, it actually bulges, which you won't be able to see, because if we keep seeing these things, then the crop would not grow. Every day we keep digging and keep seeing what is happening inside, we will not see any effect outside the soil. But what actually happens is that the first state is that that seed, it gets identified with the soil so much that we can say there's only soil here, nothing else is there. But as we keep watering, the seed inside, what it does is it absorbs the water and then gets ready to become to sprout basically. Then what it does, it creates space very beautifully. So it kind of shakes inside, whatever it does. Then the soil loosens, and then we can see that part loosening up. Then comes the sprout. So this example is given for Srishti also, general Srishti also. So at one point of time, the Prakriti, it undergoes such a laya, such an absorption with Brahman that it says nothing else exists, only Brahman. Does not the Prakriti exist? If we ask this, that Prakriti exists in such a way that we cannot say that it exists. So it is complete absorption. From that complete absorption, there comes a stage when Srishti has to happen. Therefore, next stage is getting ready internally. Next stage is making space, and the next stage is coming up actually. So these four are the Mahan, Avyakta, Akshara, and Tamaha in the descending order or the backward order. Then Tamaha Pare Deve Eki Bhavati. That seed form which is just sown, that we can take it as Tamaha. That becomes one with the Paramatma. If we say one with the Paramatma, then it does not amount to say that the seed will lose that seedness and become one with the Paramatma. No, it will still be a seed, but it will be absorbed to such an extent that we won't be able to distinguish if we are given opportunity. Vishnoho Swarupat Parato Udite Dve Rupe Pradhanam Purushascha. The other one is about the Pradhana and the Purusha, which are born out of Vishnu's Swarupa. Prakritirya Maya Khyata Vyakta Vyakta Swarupini Purushascha Yubha Vetau Diyete Paramatmani Paramatma cha Sarvesham Adharaha Parameshwaraha. Vishnu Namna sa Vedeshu Vedantashcha Giyate. This is Vishnu Purana, which only echoes what we studied. So Purusha and Prakriti, these are the two tattvas. Prakriti is again Vyakta and Avyakta. So these are the states of existence. All these are from Paramatma or Parameshwara, who is the Adhara, who is the Adhara for everything else. Ityadika hi Shruti Smriteyaha. Ramanuja quotes that it is not only Gita which says this, but also Shruti Smriti. Also, they also say this. Then the next question may come, okay, if you say Paramatma has created Prakriti, Purusha, etc., from where did Paramatma come? If he has created, then from where did he got created? Matta Parataram Nanyat Chidasti Dhananjaya Mayi Sarvamidam Protam Sutre Manigana Iva. But Arjuna, there is nothing higher than myself. Logically also, we have to accept this. Why? Because if we keep on thinking that there should be a cause for everything, so let us begin from Z. We come until A backwards. A must have also come from something else. A must also have come from something else. If we keep on going like this, there is a condition called as anavastha. Anavastha means no end, no avastha. Therefore, logically also we have to, for example, science also has the same problem. There is a Big Bang or whatever. But what existed before Big Bang? Was it nothingness? If you say nothingness, then how can something come from nothing? So therefore, we have to accept something as a basis and start from there. So logically also we have to accept that Paramatma is uncreated. Mattaha parataram na anyate kinchitasti dhananjaya. Mayi sarvamidam protam sutre manighana iva. Then he now begins to explain the relation, how to understand that oneness. Arjuna, there is nothing superior to me, and all these things, we have to imagine everything else is a gem. They are all gems. Like how a sutra would be the joining factor of all the gems. And when we wear such a necklace, you won't be able to see the sutra, which is hiding inside, which is holding it. Likewise, Bhagavan says, you won't be able to see me, but I hold everything together. Therefore, what you see would be the objects of creation. Now, there are a few terminologies used by Ramanuja in his commentary. Yatha Sarva Karanasya Api. Now Paramatma is the Sarva Karana. He is the all creator. Prakriti Dvayasya Karanatvena Sarva Achetana Vastu Sheshinaha Chetanasyapi Sheshitvena Karanataya Sheshitaya cha Aham Parataraha. Okay. Prakriti Dvayasya Karanatvena. Because I have created these two, I am superior to them. Sarva Achetana Vastu Sheshinaha Chetanasyapi. Now, the Chetana is actually a Sheshi to the Achetana to which he is associated. Like we have this Sharira, which is Achetana. Now this Sharira is obedient, is subservient to us. We are the Sheshi for this Sharira because it obeys our commands. Like now, unknowingly, we have sankalpa. I have to fulfill this desire. Then the Sharira obeys it. It helps us to satisfy our needs. But even to such a Chetana, who is a Seshi to the Achetana, I am the Sheshi, Bhagavan says. So aham parataraha. Yata tata jnana shakti baladi guna yogena cha ahameva parataraha mattaha anyat mat vyatiriktam kinchit jnana baladi gunantara yogi parataram cha asti. Na asti. What differentiates Bhagavan? The presence of 6 gunas, namely Jnana, Shakti, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Tejaha. Jnana, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Shakti, Tejaha. The Puranas and the Pramanas, they say that the word Bhagavan means one who has what is known as Bhaga. What is Bhaga? Bhaga means these 6 qualities. Jnana, Shakti, Bala, Aishwarya, Virya, Tejaha, Shakti, Aishwarya. These 6. So, one who has all these 6 gunas naturally and unsurpassingly without any conditions, he is Bhagavan. So the term Bhagavan can be actually applied to only Paramatma only. It is only borrowed to use it for others. When we say Bhagavan Vedavyasaha, it should not be understood that he is also Bhagavan. No. For Maryada, just to glorify him, we are using the term Bhagavan to Vyasa and other Acharyas. But Bhagavan means Paramatma only. So, owing to the presence of these 6 qualities, I am Parataraha. I am Ahameva Parataraha. I am superior to everything else. Mattaha Anyat. Mattaha means Panchami Bhakti. From me, apart from me. Mat Vyatiriktam Kinchit Jnana Baladi Gunantara Yogi Parataram Nast. Therefore, there is nothing else which is equipped with all these 6 gunas, better than me or superior to me. Sarvamidam Chitachit Vastu Jatam Karyavastam Karanavastam Cha Mat Sharira Bhutam Sutre Manighanavat Atmataya Avastite Mayi Rotam Ashitam. Now, Ramanuja introduces 2 more words here, peculiar to the Sampradaya. Karyavastam, Karanavastam. There are 2 ultimate stages to creation, to the entire creation. Let us say matter. This matter is always associated with Jivatmas. Okay. Now, such a matter has two stages. One is being in Karana Avastha. Other one is Karya Avastha. Avastha means a state of existence. In Tamil we say Enna Avastha. Sometimes we say Enna Avastha is it. But that Avastha is got a negative connotation. Avastha generally means not a suffering situation. Avastha means a state. That's it. Could be Sukha Avastha, Dukha Avastha. Likewise, this Chitachit Vastu Mishrita Prakriti has 2 states. One is Karana Avastha, Karya Avastha. Karana Avastha is subtle. Karya Avastha is gross. So Karya Avastha, there is a distinction in the name and form. We can perceive an object. It has a name and form. It functions, everything. But in Sukshma Avastha, in the Karana Avastha, all these objects they lose the names and forms, and they become one. They look like one, but we won't be able to distinguish, saying, oh, this is a Chetana, this is a Chetana. We won't be able to distinguish. So they become one like this. In Tamil they say Pinni Penanji. Or one more example could be, we buy clay for children in different colors. We give the clay for them to play. They make different objects while playing. What happens is that eventually they leave everything and go. They watch TV. We have to only collect everything and keep it safely. That's a different issue. But what will happen is, if some children they mixing everything put together, so they mix it so well that ultimately we won't be able to separate anything out of it. So that actually becomes the absorption state. We won't be able to say this is pink or this is blue or this is green. Everything is mixed now. So such a state would be the Karana Avastha. But if at all it's possible to separate them, that would be the Karya Avastha, when name and form can be associated with the objects. Okay. In even these two states, mat sharira bhutam, they are my like my sharira. They are my sharira. Sutre manigana vat atmataya avastite api protam ashritam. Mai protam ashritam. So just like how a thread would hold all the pearls or gems in a necklace, I hold all these things like how an atma would hold this body. So look at our own example. A moment a person dies, what happens? The body which has been sustained so far in whatever way, that loses the sustaining factor. So what happens? It collapses, right? So that sutra is not there right now. Therefore, the body begins to decompose. But in the case of Srishti, everything would be there. Only thing is they would change their states. At one point of time, the Srishti would be in Karana Avastha. The other point of time, the Srishti would be in Karya Avastha. But in both these two avasthas, Bhagavan would continue to be the sutra holding the pearls together always. Okay. Then Ramanuja brings in Shruti Vakyas to support his arguments. Yasya Prithivi Shariram, Yasya Atma Shariram, Yesha Sarvabhutarantaratma Apahatavatma Divyo Deva Eko Narayanaha Iti Atma Sharira Bhavena Avasthanam cha Jagat Brahmanoho Antaryami Brahmanadishu Siddham. The Shruti, or specifically the Upanishads, they have different statements that echo different thoughts. Some they talk about the unity over here. Sarvam Khalvidam Brahma. Everything is Brahman. Some statements they would say Brahman is different, Jiva is different, Jagat is different, etc. Some statements would bring the unity like this. Yasya Prithivi Shariram. The Prithivi is the Sharira to Brahman, or Brahman is the Atma. Therefore, the unity is there. Likewise, Yasya Atma Shariram. Jivatmas are also Sharira to Brahman. Brahman is the Antaryami for Jivatma also. Now, one important or interesting aspect of Upanishads is that, like we said at the beginning, it sounds to be very impersonal. It does not give a name and form to the Paramatma. It only talk about Brahman, Paramatma, Brahman, Paramatma only. Then finally, in the Subhala Upanishad, it says, who is that? Eshaha Sarvabhuta Antaratma Apahatabatma. So Ramanuja very beautifully, look at his genius. Yasya Prithivi Shariram, Yasya Atma Shariram. So there is the Paramatma is the Antaratma for everything. Okay, he brought out that concept and then immediately brings this statement, Yesha Sarvabhuta Antaratma. Therefore, this Paramatma, who is the Antaratma for all the Bhutas, who is he? Apahatabatma. Though he is Papma, though he is Antaryami to all the beings, he is not affected by the dosha system. Okay, who is he? Divyaha, he is divine. Devaha, he is God. He is Ekaha, he is only one. And he is Narayana. So, this is the style of Upanishads. They will give only the general aspects, all the impersonal aspects first, and then culminate with the name and form of the Devata. Iti Atma Sharira Bhavena Avasthanam cha Jagat Brahmanoho Antaryami Brahmanadishu Siddham. So Antaryami Brahmana is a very important part of the Upanishads, which bring about the unity between Jagat and Brahman in the form of Atma Sharira Bhava. So we'll stop here with the 7th verse. I thought of covering until 12 or 13 because of the delay. We couldn't. So we'll continue with the 8th verse from the next class. Shri Guru Bhyo Namaha. Dhanyavadaha. If there are any questions, you can ask me. Otherwise, we will end this session.
Again, one question.
Yeah.
More from a physics standpoint.
Okay.
Is it okay to define system as equivalent of Brahman?
System.
Just the word system. instead of universe, which is also normal.
We may say, but the system again is undefined. The parameters we don't know. We can say Brahman is a system, but with undefined borders, undefined or not undefined, inconceivable, let us say, not conceivable by us.
Okay.
Some constituents of the system we know, but there are still unexplored and inconceivable constituents to that system. I think we may say this. I don't know if I'm right.
Yeah, but it makes sense. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. It is more. It makes more sense from the Vishuddha Veda point of view. That's very important. And Dvaita also to some extent.
Right. Yes. Yes. The other one, I think sometime back, Adian, you had mentioned in the context of Bhagavad Gita, it is more about in today's context, especially when we are talking more about the Vargas, Chaturvargas, Varnas not being adhered to or not relevant in today's context. Maybe I'll send a message later. With respect to that, I had some thoughts.
Yeah, please. My point was that today we are not able to strictly adhere to the Varnashrama Dharma. We are not able to continue with the karma that our ancestors did. That's the point. Because by Karma Yoga, Krishna very clearly means the karma or the duty or the dharma which is associated with the Chaturvarna or the Chaturvarnya. Therefore, from that perspective, my viewpoint was that it is even or rather it is highly debatable to even discuss about the Karma Yoga concept of Bhagavad Gita, because the karma as taught by the Chaturvarna system is no longer being followed. That was the point. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
Yeah. Okay. So I was heard and I was heard right. Okay then. Dhanyavadaha. We'll meet in the next session.
ధన్యవాదాలు.
ధన్యవాదాలు.